Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Christian Hanna Horror here today, and today I want to talk to you guys about Nightmare Cinema. So Nightmare Cinema seems to be this movie that's just kind of popped up around Walmarts and Best Buys and didn't seem to have a whole lot of marketing behind it. The artwork alone is kind of what started to grab people's attention. I know it grabbed my attention, so did a little research, found out that Mick Garris was behind this, Dante was involved in this, and it was an anthology horror movie, and I decided to pick it up and check it out. Nightmare Cinema being attached with Mick Garris, I kind of thought maybe this was the follow-up, gonna be along the lines of the Masters of Horror type movies, and it doesn't exactly feel like that. It almost feels more of a retro Tales from the Dark Side style. So I'll try to keep this spoiler free. So Nightmare Cinema tells the story of multiple people entering the cinema, and their inner world is basically portrayed on screen and the horrors of what their life would become. It's a simple yet really nice presentation of tying the stories together, even though they're completely different stories, going from one to the next, being in the cinema at night. These people walk in, the cinema looks really good in the movie, and then they're in there by themselves, and all of a sudden they pull up the screen and they see themselves in the movie, and then we get into the story of what their life is going to become. So there's 5 stories in Nightmare Cinema, and I gotta say that the first 3 are really the attention holders, with the second 2 not being as compelling as the first 3, but what they lack for, in my opinion, storyline-wise, they kind of make up for visually. So I'll talk about 2 specific episodes in Nightmare Cinema that I really enjoyed, and that's going to be the first 2. The first episode, The Thing in the Woods, which is directed by Alejandro Brugués, I believe is his name, was the most entertaining by far for me. It's a great opening. This is an episode where you basically jump into what would be the climax or almost final act of this great, cool-looking slasher movie, and you don't know the characters' names at first, but it actually tells the story really good in the wrap-up of this episode, and it is very entertaining, has so much of a classic slasher movie feel, visually looks great. The only thing about this episode I noticed was some of the charred bodies in this clearly looked like they were these dummy props. And that was okay because, you know, this movie clearly I don't think had the big Hollywood budget we would expect. But what they did do cool was the lighting for this. It works, and it's not taken too seriously to where you would expect this to have that over-the-top great special effect look. But it is very charming, and the lighting in this episode was really good, especially when the girl's down in the basement when she discovers the bodies. It's just fun. It's very popcorn. It's very entertaining. And the twist at the end with the welder as the slasher man is very cool. I actually really liked it because it just goes to show not everything is as it appears when you first see what's going on. It was a nice twist, but not over-the-top ridiculous. It actually told a really cool sci-fi little ending to it. So the next story I want to talk about, which is the actual second episode in Nightmare Cinema, which was directed by the great Dante. And I will say that cinematography-wise, this was my favorite. It was shot very well, but Dante obviously is a master of cinema. It's called Mirar, and it's about the excessive use of plastic surgery, and it's kind of a commentary on today's use of it with people in Hollywood, and how certain people are just constantly trying to adapt their looks, and it commentates on it nice and well and doesn't take it seriously. It's not an agenda piece, which that's one thing I'll say. While we talk about certain aspects in the later episodes about religion and other things, everything kind of pushes a message, but it's not an agenda movie, which is important to me because I don't want to feel like I'm having a narrative shoved down my throat to make me think a certain way. It just makes you think, and that's the great thing about a cool horror movie, and I'll say that about this one. It just makes you think, which is really interesting. So Mirar tells a story about this woman who is going under the needle, so to speak, and this was to, at first, very humbly, she had a facial scar that she wanted to just get rid of, and she actually tells the doctor, you know, am I being vain about this? And the doctor assures you, no, you're not. And you find out soon enough that her fiance is the one that is pushing her to get even more surgeries and even more surgeries. And then we see what the fiance's mom looks like at the end of the episode, and she is the perfect example of excessive use of plastic surgery, and really kind of pokes fun at it while being visually disturbing. So Dante did a great job at that. So the other stories are good. I'll leave those kind of spoiler-free. I just want to talk to you guys about some of my favorite episodes in this. If you're a slasher fan, this movie is worth the price of admission for the welder in the first episode because it was really cool, fast-paced, looked very cool in 80s, kind of had the American Horror Story 84 vibe going on now with the new season. A couple things that I kind of have concerns about. So Mickey Rourke is the projectionist in this. He's kind of like the in-between parts and kind of ties things up in this. My problem is not that Mickey Rourke was in this, because I don't have any issue with taking a more or less big Hollywood actor being in this movie. My issue was that they should have made Mickey Rourke basically not act like Mickey Rourke. He pretty much acts and talks like he is in real life, in my opinion. And like, it just feels very machismo and real. And I wish they would have given him some sort of a character personality, maybe something against what he would typically look like or act like. And that was my only thing with Mickey Rourke. I had no problem seeing it there because I am a Mickey Rourke fan. I just wish they would have done something more character driven with him and made him look a little bit more creepier, or done something, dress him up a little bit. And the only other complaint I really have was this gentleman right here on the cover was just like, wow, I've got to get this, and you don't see him in the movie. So, oh well, you know, it's still a great cover art for the Blu-ray. So overall, I do give this movie a pretty solid 6.7, 6.8 out of 10. I thought it was really enjoyable with some really good stuff in here, and you got some really good directors involved in this as well. So if you guys want to pick this up, these are at Walmart. I think the DVDs are around $10, and you can also pick up the Blu-rays for about $12 or $13, I think, at Best Buy. I got mine at Best Buy. A nice anthology horror piece. I'd like to see more movies like this, because I am a fan of anthology horror movies, because I do have a relative short attention span, so it's nice to be able to have many movies throughout with different stories, and I can just get into the thick of it, so to speak, instead of, you know, not always just building up a whole movie that sometimes will have better endings than beginnings, and anthology horror movies typically kind of solve that for me. So definitely give this movie a watch. I definitely give it a, like I said, a solid 6.8 out of 10. I think it's a fun anthology horror movie. Not perfect by any means, but definitely has more good than bad in it. So give this movie a try. So thank you guys for watching this Christian Hanna Horror. Check out the description for the Teespring and the Patreon, where you can hear all the music I do for my channel. I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and I want to give a shout out to my Patreon at Hey Isn't That Devon Graham, because he recommended this review, so this is for you, sir. We'll see you guys next time.